Hey, it's Tuesday night. Welcome everyone to another live Scotch on the Bayou. I'm Leanne, and I'm ever so glad y'all are here to talk about some really cool kid whiskey, like new kid on the block, new distilleries that are doing some really cool things. And I've been wanting to do this. One's been cooking in my brain for a while, and until I got this first strand that we'll talk about, I was like, okay, I have a set of of whiskeys I really want to talk about in this grouping of new upstart distilleries, and I'm excited about talking about them because I think young whiskey gets a bad rap. I think a lot of people think there's that misnomer of it has to be really old to taste really good. And granted, there's some really good old whiskey. We've had it on this channel. It's been shared, and I'll absolutely love it. But there is something to be said for newer whiskey that's being made kind of in a different mindset, different creed, different idea of how they want to set about making their mark in the industry. And we'll go through 5 examples of those, but I want to hear, of course, from you all tonight and see what you think, because it's not just these 5. There's quite a few other ones over there, some of which I haven't been able to get my hands on. So we'll add those to the conversation. But I want to say hello, everyone. And Sugar Kitty's in. Hello, my friend. Thanks for being in. Meow, meow. And hey, Tom's in Whiskey and Wine Trails. Man's been busy doing all kinds of tastings. And I need to go out there and do one of those myself. Hey, Tim, good. You're here. Nice to see you. And I saw up here, you're not having to work for a change right now. Hallelujah. That's awesome. And an Anok. Oh, lovely. 2016, 54 ABV. Ooh wee. Nice. And when you get whiskey on sale, it's even better, right? I mean, you just kind of feel like you're getting away with something. I love it. Thanks for being here as always. And yes, and fanboy, I totally get it. I totally get it. Yeah, and good morning to you, Andrew. Glad that you're here, and I'm sure you've got some ideas about some of these new distilleries as well. Looking forward to hearing what you think. Tater Dom is on. Hello, friend. Thanks for being in. And Mike, good seeing you, friend. This is awesome. And in this guy, I know he likes a couple of these new guys, new whiskeys. Good to see you, Gregor. Time for a dram. Awesome. Kathy's in. Hey. Sorry, y'all. I'm getting a tickle here. It's good to see you. I'm glad you're in. Yes, finally. Anytime you can make it is awesome. Now I'm going to sneeze. And Stacy's in. Good seeing you too. Oh, it's right there. Nothing like watch Leanne sneeze on live YouTube. We'll get there. Good deal. And Graham's in. Hello, my friend. May not make it all the way. Totally understand. I knew you were on a train. I knew you were in Glasgow earlier, but now you're about to start your week at the Spirit of Stateside. Yes, we all have to live through all your photos, which I'm sure you will put on the Barflies page on Facebook. So if you don't follow that, if you're not part of the Barfly and Roy's group, go join it and live day to day by the incredible experiences Graham's gonna no doubt show us all through. Yeah, awesome. Good to see everybody. Jimmy Jazz is in. Hey, everybody's coming to the party. Whiskey Nose. Hey, my friend. Good seeing you. Yeah, so let's want to talk, just kind of run through some of these. And a really good point. New distilleries, Irish distilleries. Yes, that would be a really good one for you because I know that you're excited, and Irish whiskey has been booming big time, so to speak. You know what? Anyway, but yeah, awesome. So young whiskey, new distilleries, and new I have as in the definition of that is less than 10 years old, and really have just some of them have just now gotten their first whiskeys out. So I have a couple of those examples tonight, and so we could talk about them. And particularly, I would love to hear from you always. But if you've had any of these, what's got me really interested in the new distilleries and this younger whiskey is the fact that so much flavor is coming out of a new whiskey. And I say that because again, there's some of these old ways of thinking that you have to have a lot of years to have a good amount of flavor to something. It has to live in that cask for a long time. It just has to have a lot of runtime on it. And there's some interesting similarities through all of these 5 examples I have today. Couple differences for sure, but I think it's going to be interesting to talk about what those similarities are. And one of the first similarities I thought of is that they're all independently owned. Every one of these isn't a conglomerate, isn't part of a conglomerate. And I think what that does straight out of the gate is it allows a level of flexibility that is, you can just kind of do what you want to do. Some of these are very flexible. Our last dram is like the mad scientist of being flexible when it comes to making their whiskey. So I thought that little tidbit was really interesting, that all of them are owned by, a private group or a private entity or something like that, and not by a big drinks spirit house. So interesting. Hey, I see Kevin's in tonight too. Good to see you, my friend. So this first dram is actually the last bottle I got, and it's a little cumbersome. I'm not real sure I'm a fan of the packaging because it looks perilously fragile. And that is Isle of Harris. And this is how it comes packaged. And I was scared to death it was going to drop. It's got one of these flip over presentation, see what I mean? Presentation boxes like this. So now that is done, we were going to take this bottle out. But it's got scads of information, lots and lots of information, including a coaster, and the glue didn't quite hold on that, but quite an informative book about it as well. I'm going to chunk that down there. Absolutely gorgeous packaging, and the way the design of this, of course, I have to have my glasses on to read it. But some tidbits about Isle of Harris while I pour this. So we are going to move into here. So Isle of Harris, or Harris, depends on who all you talk to. They're a Western Highland. They're an island. I think islands should be a category in SWA, but clearly they don't ask me. And I'm going to pour this a wee bit. I actually opened this up this weekend. This is the first release. It's batch 4 for 2023. And it's an absolutely gorgeous bottle. This bottle will be saved. That's for sure. No not chill filtered, no color added. 46% is the presentation on it. And it's very pretty and light. Let me throw this down here real quick so you can see just how pretty. And Graham, if you run into my friends from the Gables there in Speyside, tell them I said hello. So yeah, Isle of Harris. This particular one, Western Highlands, Islands, the Western Highlands, that area, that whole Hebridean whiskey, the Talisker, Tuareg, Raasay, even Oban, I would throw in there. And now Isle Harris. There's actually, when you look at that, it's the second distillery on the outer Hebrides, and the first being on Lewis. The Herrick, what does that mean? It's got it for native of Harris. And oh man, this is even better than it was Saturday night. But yeah, so they ran their first spirit in 2015 and then released late last year in 2023. So we're looking at, I think they said, I'm trying to remember exactly, about this being about 4 to 5 years old. And if anyone else has more details on that, let me know. Kind of looking at where they get their flavor. And this is, I looked in to see kind of part of their process, because I think this group is really bent on making sure they get the best spirit off the still so that they have something really good to work with as it matures. And so the different techniques, we'll kind of be talking about that tonight, what these distilleries are doing. Just the quick on this 1.2 liter semi-lauter mash tun, and it's steel, but it's lined with oak, which I thought was really interesting. Oregon washbacks. Their fermentation is in that really sweet, fruity time period of 72 to 96 hours. They also have descending line arms, which I thought, okay, that's going to be a little heavier spirit, right? I knew it was coming. Sorry, guys. And they're cranking out some spirit at 400,000 liters per year. And they're owned again privately by Isle of Harris kind of group, rather than a big one. So that's where I am right about that. So the youngest whiskey in the batch is 4 years. So again, no age statement on this one. And they it's matured in bourbon cask and then Oloroso and Fino butts. Oh man, it has just a lovely, lovely nose. I have to see. I want to see if folks have had this one. Let me know if you've had the Herrick, the Isle of Harris. Hey Al, good to see you. Another one coming in is the Lindor's Abbey. Absolutely. Interesting, the cask of Lindor's collection in 3 main types of bourbon, the sherry and the red wine, STR red wine. Interesting. Yeah, I would like to try those too. It's interesting. If you can actually find a place to try them here in the States, let us know. Because where you can try them, where you can get them is usually 2 different things. But yeah, that's finding a place that would have something like that young and not your run of the mill brands and all. So this nose, it's sweet and it's got a bit of sour on it, more like a little bready, but very clean. There's a hint of peat, and if I remember correctly, I really got more of the peat on the finish. Got a little bit on the palate for sure. Then their peat level is pretty light. It's 12 to 15 ppm. Yep. So you hear the good stuff here, and Graham and Andrew. Graham especially has got his hand on the pulse of all that's going on. So quite a few new whiskeys in the last 2 years. Falkirk, heard that one was pretty pricey, huh? Ballandolic, Holyrood, um, is it Strathern, Harris, and Ardnahoe. Now, Ardnahoe, I'm really excited about because we visited that before, any other whiskey, of course, was released. So I'm very excited to try that and see what Fraser Hughes has been able to put together. That's going to be really, really something. Good point. Good point, Tim. A lot of them had Jim Swan working with them when they got started. That's especially, on pulling their cask. And he actually did a lot for American single malts in that respect, too. He worked with Virginia Distillery to set up their casking program. Yep, for sure. So what did I miss? What did you buy, Tom? Was it this one? No, or was it what Tim got? You have to tell me. Okay. So you got the first release batch, HEO 723. Mine's 0423. On the label that goes over the top. Interesting. So you would imagine that they would put some batches. But, there's some characteristics that you hear from on young whiskey, and hot is one of them, where it is just a lot of kind of a back flame of heat, especially on the end of the palate or towards the finish. There's none of that on this. None of it. And at 46%, it's not wimpy, It's slightly oily. It's got a slight oily. It smells cleaner than the mouthfeel is. That peat just kind of hangs around. And to me, this is more peat than smoke. It's more of an earthier tone to it. And you get a little warmth at the end, maybe a little alcohol, but it's not overpowering. So I'm going to come back to that. So I want to know what other ones that you've had. Okay, Al has had, it got delivered today. Lucky dog, right? The Strathern. Yeah. So that's one I haven't even heard of. So I'm gonna have to go do some digging and find out about that one for sure. So the Harris is up to batch 11 now. They're putting out a lot of. They're at 400,000 compared to most of these other ones that are in the 200s. They're putting out some stock, that's for sure. They really are. Okay, Tom. Yes, the Isle of Harris. Yes, awesome. I'm glad that you got it. And again, the bottle is gorgeous, and so that might even be something to talk about because the bottles on these are very, very different. Perhaps maybe not the second one. The second one that I'm going to talk about is much more traditional to your normal. And this one is the Clydeside. And I got to go to the Clydeside in November when I went over for the Glasgow Whiskey Festival. Again, it's a lowland because it's in Glasgow. Their first spirit ran in 2017. Their first bottling was 2021. So, they were on the cusp of 4 years. Anyway, you do the math, maybe 5 if it was early and late. I don't believe it was. I think it was later in 2017 when they started. Their capacity, what they're putting out, is over 620 liters per year. So, 1,000 liters per year. So, they're really putting out a lot of whiskey. And of course, they can't put it and can't store it in Glasgow for safety reasons, but it's a little further out from there. And then it is owned by Morris and Glasgow Distillers. And while that's not a consortium or this big, huge, conglomerate, it is royalty. It is whiskey royalty. Um, it's so it's founded by Tim Morrison, and the the distillery manager is it was sorry, it was Alistair McDonald, and I got to meet both of them when I was there in November. And Alistair is a hoot. He's from Iowa. He took us back, let us taste some different things out of some quarter cask that he was playing around with and experimenting with. Just a delightful man. And then I see this white-haired gentleman that is the most dapper thing. He is quintessential gentleman, you know? And that is when I found out that that was Tim Morrison, and I got to speak with him. And evidently, he liked my accent because he kept coming back to want to talk some more. And it's just the idea of if you can go to the distillery, and I know Tom's been there, I know Graham's been there. You go through 4 generations of whiskey making with the Morrison family, from Bamore to Raasay, to um, uh, they owned, was it Broccoli that they owned at one point? I know it was Bamore, and then so the things that they have owned and the what they have gone through, they are whiskey. They really really are. So this is not their stop cross. So their stop cross was their initial whiskey that they released in 2021 and is their core range, basically. Again, non-age statement. None of these I'm going to have tonight will have an age statement. A couple have decided to add ages, one in particular. But for the most part, in talking with all these folks, at some point or the other, they're not real set on throwing a number on their bottles, which is, I think, is an interesting and probably the way the trend's going to be going, right? So for Clydeside, they're looking at, they're all steel. Everything is steel, where they don't have any, different washbacks or, wooden washbacks or anything like that. Everything is pretty much steel that they go through. They have a set 72-hour fermentation. They're new, but their production is based more on volume, I think, where some of the fermentations of some of the other new ones are kind of up and down or a little bit more flexible. It seems they're out to do what they're going to do. They're primed for production, but they're being really careful about what's going in their whiskey. The Stop Cross is their initial release, and it's a percentage of bourbon cask and sherry casks, predominantly bourbon casks. And Stop Cross is actually it's named for where they are, and it's right on the Clyde River in Glasgow, and they're on this, like, the whole building is on an area that had basically a gate bridge that went to an island where they would dock, the Stop Cross dock, where ships would come into Glasgow to dock from the Americas, and all the trade would go through there. The thing is what I found there and found interesting is that it's 21 days closer to sail from, like, the Virginias in America to Glasgow than it was to go down and around to London. So a lot of the new American trade came into Scotland there through the Clyde River. Then, in addition to London, but a lot of it came in from Scotland that way. And I love the history about it, all of that. The bottle I have is, and came home with in November, is their 2023 limited edition cast strength, and give you the Clydeside, give you an idea about this. I'm not going to open this tonight because I had Mr. Morrison sign it for me on the 6th of November. How adorable is that? And also, Alistair signed it for me. So I haven't quite made the commitment to open the signed bottle just yet, y'all. So forgive me on that. But what I had of this, I was impressed with it being at that 4, pretty much 4. And I do think there's an appreciable difference between 4 years and 5 years. So anyway, I thought it was really pretty cool. Alistair's letting us know that they started offering new releases of Stop Cross with different finishes. Okay. Possibly a peated version soon. That'd be neat. Yep. This is that. This is the one, the cast strength that they had, but yeah, they had 2 barrels there, I think, that you could do hand fills as well. So, beautiful place, really pretty place. The still house is absolutely breathtaking, overlooks the river, just gorgeous. So, Clydeside, the Clydeside is another really good, doing some cool stuff. I'm excited to see what they're going to come up with later on in talking with Alistair about kind of his ethos and what he's thinking about doing and playing with. It's going to be interesting. I think they're going to have fun with casking on things. If I remember correctly, Graham, you may remember what it was, but I want to say there was a port cask that they were doing at the distillery. It was some wine type cask for sure. Awesome. Taste and sensibility is in, and a Lindor's, a Lochlea, and a Raasay. Perfect. Beautiful segue to my next dram. And this one, yeah. I know everybody's like, duh, Lee. I can't believe that we really think that you like that distillery. I know where Tim is an Anok fanboy. I am I am the Raasay fangirl for sure. Al, if y'all remember, Al had the quote of the year. Yes, we're all still waiting for that Glentesco. that Glentesco release, I just hope it doesn't have like a plastic wrapper aftertaste, if you know what I mean, But that's funny. Yeah, so Isle of Raasay. This is my next one, y'all. So what I have here is their core range that I'm going to pour a wee bit of. I absolutely adore this distillery. I think the people are absolutely spectacular. Make no bones about it, but I would think that they were nice people. But if if I didn't like the whiskey, it would be I wouldn't be harping on it. And that's for sure. So again, Western Highlands. It's an island. It's Hebridean. They're part of the Hebridean Whiskey Festival. So Raasay, for those who may not have ever watched me or live under a rock at this point, off to the island of Skye, absolutely stunning. Just probably the most gorgeous distillery setting that you can imagine. You're looking out over the water to Skye. The Victorian house that you can stay in at the distillery. It's a mix of modern and old, and the old has been kept with respect. So Alistair and his group, Alistair Day, R&B Distillers, the owners, started their spirit and started making spirit 2017. 2 years later, I meet him at the Isle of Whiskey Academy in 2019. And their first release was 2020. And I would love to have grabbed that bottle. That bottle eluded me because I'm way the hell over here. But thanks to Gregor, Time for a Dram, if he's still in, a big, again, kudos to him because he sent me a blind with some of the inaugural. And I absolutely lost my mind. Did I not, Gregor? Because it is so very, very different. And had a fun. I even thought it was Campbelltown because it had just this funk about it. and had to know more. And thankfully, we've gotten quite a few different releases from them. Some of which are back here, and they're woefully low. But again, very cool bottle. So when you look at this bottle, and I've kept every one of these, they make an absolutely gorgeous water bottle for the table. There's like these fossils. It's all a representation of where they are, um, the environment they're in, and this is one in particular I want to talk about flavor and creating a flavor, a complexity of flavor with young whiskey. And looking at this, they're most of these smaller ones have like a 1 ton mash tun. They have a particular setup where they have a cooling jacket on their line arm, so they can tweak that in respect, which I think is adds to flavor. Their spirit still does have an attachment for a column. I don't know if that really makes a play within the whiskey. Certainly the gin, I can see that they do, but their fermentation is really interesting because they have two different lengths of runs, and they'll run 4 of them that are short at 67 hours. So you're right on the cusp of the fruit. And then they run, is it 6 long runs of fermentation of 118 hours. So almost double, not quite, but almost double what that short run is. So that in itself, you have different conjures making all kinds of flavors in the 2 different fermentation lengths, right? Add that with, on their core range, their makeup of casks and the different malts. They use peated and unpeated. Um, if you have not seen Roy's show where he is at Raasay with Alistair, it's well worth the time if you're interested in the distillery, because they go very much further into it than we will tonight. But in looking at the 6 different casks that they have here, half are unpeated, half are peated. And then there are 3 different casks. They're either X-Rye, Bordeaux, red wine Bordeaux, or a Chinkapin virgin oak. And again, some peated, some unpeated. So you have this like gobstopper of layers of flavor, right? Put that together. Yes, it's still young whiskey. You got a lot going on in a glass. Mm, mm, mm. So Graham's telling me that they've released the first batch. I know. The first cast strength. I know, Brent. So I do have the Manzanilla, the tourism of the year, and the distillery of the year. That's the Humboldti, however pronounce it, Colombian oak. So those 2 I do have. The Duncana, I've not gotten that one yet because I'm trying to find retailers who will pull it into Louisiana. But the nose on this particular one, again, is their core range, and they're all at 46% tonight, guys. All of them are at 46, brand new. We're not going to send out some 40% whiskey. It's 46%. That's legit, right? Nobody adds color to their stuff. These new kids do not. Nobody filters their stuff. These kids do not, there's a funk. There's a lot of, you tell I poured a little heavy on this one. Mm. Mm, 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 man. So on the nose, it gets a little, there is a little bit of funk on there, not near what there was on that inaugural that I remember, but this has a light sweetness to it. With there might be a little spice from the rye, it might be from the youth. Um, the peat is very mellow. Um, it's more of a smoke on this to me than, earth. Actually, when I'm thinking about the virgin oak probably has more to do with the spice at the end. Super clean. It's sweeter on the palate and the mid palate, and then it just kind of lingers around. You get a little bit of spice there at the end, but yeah, not a dirty dram. Just but there's some depth there. It keeps going. It's not like, oh, there it went. This is sip's still hanging. The heat's still there, without it being hot, without it being off putting. So yeah, I'm all about that Raasay life. All about it. I'm glad, Tom, for you being able to find Raasay relatively available in Lochlea and Torveg. That's great. Um, yeah, that would be really cool. Um, it's hard to focus on, one particular. Yeah, absolutely. I can see that because there are so many. And Al, you'll have to remind me where you are. But I mean, if you are able to get to new stuff, I'm really happy for you. Really pretty jealous too some. But I I think whatever we can get, even if it's samples, because truly that first impression that I had was a sample in a blind, and it just threw me for a loop. It just was, it made such an impression, right? So it doesn't have to be the fact that if you can't get a whole bottle, if you know somebody who could give you a sample, then that way you can at least try it, right? Um, but yeah, Raasay's putting some really cool stuff out with the new single cask and then the cask strength stuff that they've had. It's gonna be pretty cool. I'm excited for Alistair. Not only that, but I think I talked about this a little bit last week. They got R&B Distillers is going to about do it all over again because they got the permit to go ahead and build Mackerhanish in Campbelltown. So again, they're taking something old instead of it a Victorian house, boarding house that they did in Raasay. They have a farm. They have the Drury Farm, and they're going to build the distillery and respect the history that is there on the farm, while adding cutting edge, new, modern, gorgeous. It's going to be amazing. I'm so excited for them. So excited. Al, it's a must. It's easier to get to Raasay than it is to Ardnamurchan. I'll tell you that. It's super easy to get there. Get to Skye, take the ferry, you're there. It's absolutely gorgeous. Gorgeous. Um gorgeous. Oh, okay. So, all right. You're in the southwest of England. Ah, about an hour and 15 from Cotswold. Wow. Well, thank you for being up in the middle of the night. Al, I had no idea that you were a night owl along with Andrew and Graham. Thank you very much for joining us and being here and wanting to listen to a Southern woman from Louisiana talk about whiskey when it's literally in your backyard, man. Oh goodness. So yeah, so our next one, I'll get off of the one quick note on PP on Raasay is their peat level. 48 to 52 ppm, where Harris was much lighter, like 12, 16, right? Very, very light. I think Clydeside's going to be doing some peat. I think even Graham mentioned it just a few minutes ago, but yeah. So interesting on that. So the next one is interesting in that there have been lots of offerings from this one straight out the gate, and that would be Lochlea. A couple of y'all have some Lochleas. So You'll have to let me know what you've had so far. I've got the harvest. I'm trying to remember which crop this is. So that's the thing about Lochlea. Okay, so lowlands. So we have had Clydeside was lowlands. We have another lowlands. This on the west side of Glasgow, down a little bit. First spirit came off the still 2018. First release 2022. And again, they're about like Raasay, and this next one, they're at 200,000 liters a year, locally or privately owned. Yeah. So the two that I have the Harvest Edition First Crop. It's like right there. There's that. Sorry. Come on and there we go. Okay, First Crop. And we'll take a look at that one. I got boxes everywhere. Again, cool bottle. Cool bottle. Like, this glass is going to be hard to throw away and recycle. But 46%. So this particular one, y'all, the writing's so tiny. This is the sherry and bourbon maturation. Is our harvest. So they have a whole marketing and kind of basically a seasonal crop theme where they have the plowing, the sowing, the harvesting, and the fallow. And then they have other offerings. I think they did their first cast strength, and they've done a 5-year-old. They actually came up with a 5-year-old statement. So that's pretty interesting. So there are so many. There are a lot. So they just announced the 4 seasonals are going to stop. Okay, and I wonder what they're going to bring out next. I don't know, and I kind of wonder about that, and I wonder about the timing of it too, Graham. Let me know what y'all think about this, because they brought in John Campbell from Lefroy. They've been making whiskey. And right before they started putting out their whiskey, John comes over from being at Lefroy for 27, almost 30 years, And Lochlea is a farm. Robert Burns lived on Lochlea, They also do a short and a long fermentation, a 66 and 116 hour fermentation. So they have like a different balances of flavor in the wort that they're coming up with, right? Lots of variations, lots of them, So the first age statement was this year or last year. I'm a little confused. I think it was either late last year or early this year. I can't remember. But they put 5-year statement on it, The one that I have that I'm going to pour tonight is the our barley, and it is from barley that was grown on their farm. And I think I need a bigger desk. Oh, thanks, Al. I appreciate you watching the show. I appreciate everybody watching the show. And as a reminder, this is going to be the last live for a little bit on Tuesday nights, because I'm going to take the summer off. We have lots of things to attend to. We had a thunderstorm come through yesterday, and then we had water pouring through the ceiling in our bar. So the roofers will be here on Friday to patch that up. It's been a week, and it's only 2 days. Okay, this nose is much better than the last time I remembered. And I mean, it's not, I've had one pour out of this, right? I've not had a lot out of it. And it is very malty, almost doughy, with a good little bit of burnt sugar. I'm trying to remember. Okay. So this is matured in a combination of bourbon and sherry and STR cask. So I got a hint of char, and that's where I'm going to say the STR's influencing it. So again, we've got kind of a conglomerate of different things that we're using, right? You've got flavor from local barley. You've got flavor from two different variations of fermentation time. You've got a bourbon and sherry. Okay, that's pretty traditional, but then you throw a STR in there, and that kind of adds another dimension. These young whiskeys are pulling flavor from a lot of abracadabra. And I think it's being done. I mean, I know it's being done purposely, but I think it is not as a gimmick. It is to actually push the spirit to see what can come out of that, the spirit that they're making, trying to make it the very best they can off the still, and then doing some different types of maturation and combinations of that maturation to build depth within the flavor profile. Again, there's no heat there. I mean, I can tell you, and I'm not to throw American single malt under the bus here, but there's some 3 and 4 other single malts that I mean, like, you couldn't put your nose even in a 46 for ABV without just like alcohol screaming at you. There's none of that here. Mm. Hey, Peter, good to see you. I didn't catch exactly what you're doing with pineapple and Buchanan's, but it sounds tasty. So Andrea, you have tasted most of those Lochleas, okay? Wildflower, you didn't feel up to it. It's going to be there. You'll get around to it, I'm sure. Yeah, no worries. So you were talking to this recently, and they are about to start floor maltings. Okay, that's interesting. Very interesting, and not cheap to do. So all of them pretty sweet on the palate, straight up. You get a little of that kind of sour bread dough starter. Maybe that's a sherry influence or something. It's pretty dry on the end. And palate wise, this is the hottest of them. I'm gonna let it sit for a second. Mm. Definitely the hotter one on the finish than the others have been, but not off-putting. And it's not just hot. There's flavors. There's still sweetness there. Again, a little dryness on the finish, but more like if you ate a walnut, that kind of dryness, not really wine tannin dryness. I think I get more of the bourbon influence with some vanillas, a little like charred sugar, that kind of thing. But very nice, very respectable, quite decent. And again, this spirit, John Campbell wasn't there when this came off the still. So he's working with the stock that he had, right? So it's kind of one of those situations of what are we going to be tasting when he has his stock coming of age, kind of like in the Billy Walker stage of Glenallachie, right? So yeah, it's very, very promising. I'm excited about that. Oh, Mark, you might need to go outside and make sure they're not swarming in the house. Thanks, Trooper, for reminding us that we live in South Louisiana, and we got to make sure we don't have outside lights on, or the termites will swarm. Yeah, friend, it is that time of year, isn't it? I hope you're doing well. Glad you're on the land. That's good. But yeah, So, you were thinking earlier that the earlier releases, this is, I would say that this is the first our barley. Let me see what it says. I don't know. I have to look. But yeah, some of the earlier ones were a little hot and felt pretty young. Okay. And the older ones are a little bit as as they age up, I'm sure. Then you're gonna work probably, you know, first spirit ran in 2018. Then you're looking at the first release in 2022. That you're pushing 4 years, mainly. I would say maybe five with a little almost six in there, maybe. Um, Interesting. Mm, yeah, cool. Um, and then bringing up the rear is another bottle I've talked about, which I'm excited about. And again, I think whiskey's great. We all know it tastes better when it's shared. But I also think there's an appreciable difference when you can make a personal connection to the whiskey and make a connection to the people that have the whiskey, right? Or they're making the whiskey. Um uh had my buddies over, our little Scotch group over, and had them taste this particular one this week and Saturday night, and I think they were quite quite taken aback. Some of them are really enjoy their old whiskey, and this one I think kind of set them right on a few things. So, um, the rounding out the category of my five picks would be Holyrood, and again a lowland. So we've had three lowlands and two islands. I will say Western Highlands. So that was interesting in the similarity. I know, you've got Arnaho coming up, uh, Falkirk that Graham mentioned. There's quite a few more that are popping up, and some that like Clydeside that I mean not Clydeside, the Glasgow whiskey. There's some that I don't have access to or don't have a bottle. I wanted to be able to say I've tasted this and this is what I think about it, um, as opposed to just kind of going off what other folks are saying. But yeah, so Holyrood First Spirit came off still in 2019. Last year, September last year, they rolled out with this bottle, and that would be the Arrival as their first release. Um, 250 liters, 1,000 liters per year, and they're owned by like a little consortium group of investors. But I know them of Kelly and Rob Carpenter, who are absolutely fabulous people. And again, when you make connections with the good people, you really, really want to make like their whiskey. When you find out you really do like their whiskey, it's even better. It's even better. Their distillery manager, Callum Ray, an absolute sweetheart. Check out my video with him that we did an interview when I was there in November, and just talked about how they are absolute mad scientists with everything that they're putting together between their malts and the yeast combinations. They just want to make what they want to make and hope everybody really likes it, which they've not had trouble with that yet. I particularly see that they're going to have a lot of single cask releases, or they're going to have some batch releases. They're not going to put age statements on things. They're not going to have a core range really. After Arrival is gone, something else, next up may show up. I don't know what they're going to be naming it, but they're there in Edinburgh, and they pay homage to the beer legacy of the city with the brown bottle and where they are, and so they're doing some really cool things with what they're doing. Again, they do a 48 and 120 hour fermentation, so they're getting again those flavor profiles at different types of different lengths of fermentation. With that wort, it's going to taste different. Not only that, some wort's clear, some wort's cloudy. So that adds something to it because certain flavor profiles, flavonoids, and all the chemical things that happen within that process, those stick around in some and not in so much others. So that adds to it. You look at their stills. Their stills are tall, not Glenmorangie tall, but really tall. They can play with the condenser. They can play with the line arms. They can do all kinds of mojo, depending on what they want to put together and what kind of flavor profile they want to do. So that was really cool. They do they import rum, so they have a plethora of rum casks that they have access to, along with ex bourbon and sherry, and they use some virgin oak casks too. This particular their first offering, the rival, try to get out of the way. That one is pretty, I would say, traditional in the way it was made, with the type of yeast made and with the type of barley. Whereas some of their other more crazy concoctions, it may be an element to something that they put in later in a big batch, or it may just be a single cask. But they have an absolute fabulous recipe book of all these different things that they've tried. And I think it takes a lot of moxie to do moxie or craziness, one or the other, to do that. And this, y'all, I'm a little sad because there's only this much left. And I only got the one bottle. So, but I'm going to be happy that I had it and not sad that it's gone. Mm. So, 2 bottlings arrival, and then the peated Embra. I saw that they had just done that. So you prefer the 2 small batch. I bet those are really pretty tasty. This has an interesting finish on it. It's pretty sweet up front. And if I'm going on my brain, this is a combination of bourbon, sherry, and rum casks. We talk about it in that interview for sure. It's a little warm on the back end. Not as hot as the Lochlea was, but mellow wise, I would say the Raasay. I'm not going to put the Clydeside in there since I didn't try that tonight, and this is the cast strength anyway. I didn't find it when I had the Staub Cross. I didn't find it hot at all, but that was November. This one, I get a definite sweetness. I'm pretty sure is from that rum. It's very pleasant, you know. It is. I mean, it's got a lot going on. There's a sour. No, I keep saying sour, not as in like sour candy or something, but more like sourdough starter. That's one of those flavor palate kind of flavor notes that I get on malty stuff. It is much maltier than some of the other things I've had. Mm. But yeah, just quite legit. It's and again, this bottle's gone pretty fast since November. I've shared quite a bit of it with my state friends because we can't really get it over here, right? Anybody who had it, it sold out immediately over in the States. But they're just getting going, you know. I mean, from last year having their first release is really something. Um I was like, it looks like that old bootleg bottle, you know. I'm not sure if you heard the story, but my grandfather and his father ran an illicit still in the hills of Tennessee. So yeah, I'm sure that they poured lots of stuff in old beer bottles to sell it for sure. Uh, yeah. So about that, the barley on the farm, they will be doing barley there on the farm at Macahanish. Um, but the funny thing is they do have some barley on Raasay. And when we were there in June, we talked to Alistair, and he was telling us about how they borrowed a combine. And a combine here, a machinery to cut wheat, barley, sugarcane, cotton, whatever the crop is. The combine is the piece of the tractor machinery that cuts that, right? And I'm thinking, how in the world did they get a combine? Thinking what the combines look like here. This one was itty bitty. It was like, I think a single row or 2 row combine, not something that could cut 8 or 12, rows at a time. And they're literally borrowed and put on the ferry a combine. I think they had to get it from somebody off of, I want to say it was way up north, maybe Orkney even, that they had to bring this combine down to harvest the barley that they had grown on Raasay. Needless to say, high volume barley on Raasay won't ever be a thing. But kudos for the people that go out and try that stuff. I mean, there's a fine line between crazy and brave, and these distillers have decided to do that. They've decided to straddle that line and see how they come out in the end. And I think these are all hitting. So good for every one of them. That's awesome. The dark bottle and hiding. There is something to say about that, but I know, and I don't know. I think there are other ones are dark as well, the ones that I've seen in the marketing materials. But that truly is an homage to the beer, Edinburgh being the beer capital, and all of that. And it gets to kind of, protect the whiskey from the light. Lagavulin does it, right? Bunnahabhain does it. So, yeah, kind of depends. Oh, you're gearing up for some tiki time. Good for you, Peter. I hope you have. And every time I think about that, I think about Jimmy Buffett and boat drinks. So I hope you have some really good boat drinks this weekend, and definitely let us know how that goes. That's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah. Oh, and you have pre-made cocktails. That's even better. Just don't even have to do the work. It's all done. That's good. For you, the arrival was Black Forest tiramisu. Interesting. It's like a back smell of coconut, like of maybe not coconut, maybe nutmeg or something. That would make kind of sense. There's some kind of spice on the back end of this nose and palate that I get. I'm still not quite sure what it is. I mean, I almost thought it was like pine tar, but in a good way. But I'm not quite sure what that is. But yeah, good stuff. That's a great. I love it when everybody shares what they get, and because most people will say, okay, I know exactly what tiramisu is. I know exactly what a Black Forest cake is. So thanks for that, Andrew. I appreciate it. Yes, no, it was very middle of the road. It was not experimental. It was very safe. It was super safe. And Calvin and I even kind of talk about that being the case, going straight for the safe stuff. Hey, this is us, but now we're going to go kind of wild. So, they're still a business. They're still going to make money. They have not been making gin. They've not had a cash crop in. So they need to make some money. It is a business. It's not altruistic, right? Um, oh, if only we could have altruistic whiskey. How fabulous would that be? Definitely so. Very, very cool. Well, hey Margin, good seeing you. Hello. Um, so yeah, so these five, just give them a try. If there are things that other ones that you have found that you really really like, let me know because I want to dig more into these. I keep calling the cool kids or the new kids on the block, although I am a One Direction sort of fan. Actually, I like the individual members of One Direction. Um, as you know, I collected Harry Styles and Louis Tomlinson last year. I get Niall Horan. Jennifer and I are going to go see Niall Horan in August when we go do some American single malt at Andalusia. But that brings up the summer and summer tonight. After tonight, Tuesday nights will be terribly boring. I'm so sorry, but I need a break. I need a break for my brain and to take care of stuff in the house and some work stuff and that kind of thing. I'm redoing the studio, so that will be a work in progress over the summer. But I'm not going way away because we're going to be doing summer afternoon in the state, 8 p.m. UK time, because I want to be sweet to my UK friends and allow you to sleep overnight. But we're going to be doing a show on a Sunday in May, June, July, and August. My big hope, and I've got some feelers out, but is to get some of the folks that we've been talking about. One in particular fellow I've been talking about tonight on the show on Sunday on a Sunday. So it's much more reasonable for those in the UK to be able to watch and participate. So be on the lookout for that. I'll let Camp Dram members know before anyone of when that's going to be, and then we'll put it out on socials too when we lock those dates down. Planning out the fall live shows and where all we're going to be and what we're going to do. So if you have suggestions on those, I've been writing down some things that y'all have talked about. Let me know about that. Because I think we've got some really cool stuff. Yes, 8 p.m. You're gonna go to sleep. I feel like you should let me know how much sleep you get on Tuesday nights now, Graham. You and Andrew and Al, because I feel bad for like depriving you of sleep. But I'm ever so thankful that y'all and everybody else comes and enjoys this. But yeah, we're gonna be doing that. Tomorrow, Mark and I are going to New Orleans to meet my buddy John McShane. He and his lovely wife Nicola are in New Orleans. They're on holiday here in the States. He's been a cowboy last week in Texas, in San Antonio, Fort Worth, Dallas, and now he's back in New Orleans. And I'm sure he's sitting in a club right now listening to some really good music. But we're going to go and visit with them tomorrow afternoon. I'm so excited about that. So I actually want to try to get him to come on and join us, because if you have not experienced John McShane, who's the global brand ambassador of SMWS, fabulous individual, you're in for a treat with that one. Al, please go to sleep so you can be all good for your client meeting in 5 hours. Just tell him it was a loud Southern woman's problem that kept you awake. And then you could do like Andrew and have a nap earlier. That's pre-planning. I love that proactiveness for the team there, Andrew. You're a gem. Thank you, friend. Good to know, Andrew, on Arizona Distillery doing single malts. Interesting. I wanna delve back more. Lots of good stuff. I will definitely give your regards, Graham, to John. We may talk about you. I'm sure we will. But y'all, I hope you enjoyed this content. Thanks for hanging with me. I'm not going away. I'm always here on socials, always scotchandthebayou@gmail.com. Give me a shout. But we will be back in next month on a Sunday, not Mother's Day. I know it's not going to be that day, but we'll be back and talk to you later about that. I'm going to finish this Raasay. Mm, mm, mm. And say thank you again and good night to everybody. And I will see you next month. Slange, y'all.